How's it going, everybody? So today is a very exciting day. I installed the BenQ LK936ST projector in my home sim build, so it's a true 4K projector, and I gotta say, I'm extremely blown away. It looks absolutely amazing. The colors, the detail, the settings, everything about it, it looks truly amazing. I cannot stress it enough. Now, I've read about the BenQ projector for about the last year. It's been out for about just over a year now, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. People highly recommend it. And I knew that I had to get one of these eventually in my sim setup. Luckily for me, the guys at BenQ reached out and they offered to send me this projector so I can test it out, which obviously I was extremely excited about. One question that I had in the beginning, because I've been running this Optima, is it's a short throw projector. It's 0.5 throw ratio, which is why I thought, I kind of have to use a projector with that kind of throw ratio for my setup. I'm about 8.5, 9 feet from my screen. And I know the BenQ also has a short throw ratio, but theirs is about 0.8. So I always kind of wondered, will it work? Will it cast a shadow? The Optimus kind of sits further forward, so it hasn't been an issue. And BenQ advised me that they have this brand new tool. It's a 3D tool where you can enter all your room dimensions, pick the projector model, and you can literally spin this whole thing around and it'll show you exactly where to mount the projector, whether or not it's going to cast a shadow, and if it's going to work in your space. I'm glad to see that they're making steps to help out the golf simulator community. We're a large community and we're growing by the day, and seeing one of the companies actually take action and add this 3D golf simulator tool for us to use, and also a golf mode. I know me from the beginning, just being like a big video guy, I'm going through the settings, trying to figure out, what do I pick? Do I pick bright mode, presentation, like what looks the best, tweaking colors, doing this, doing that? And I know a lot of people have that question. I see it pop up all the time. What settings do you guys use? Well, they actually incorporated a golf mode in here, and based on my tests and what I've done, they hit it on the head with this one. The greens are like so lush, the blues really pop. All the colors that are important to like golf courses, they nailed in this golf mode that they put on there. So I'm gonna show you using the tool how I determined where this projector was gonna mount, and if I knew it was gonna work for me, like was it gonna cast that shadow? So stay tuned, I'm gonna go over all of that and also show you through the setup, how I get it to fit the screen to look, perfectly. I see a lot of people set it up and they're using a lot of digital corrections. There's a better way to do it, and the more digital corrections you use, the more it impacts the image quality. With the BenQ, they actually have adjustment knobs so they can shift the lens without affecting the image quality to get that image, right where it needs to be. Doing it this way makes it so you ensure you get the best possible image. So let's get started with this video. I'm going to explain to you, show you all the features, everything I love about the BenQ, and I'll even do some comparisons with my previous Optima GT 1090 HDR, as I have them actually both mounted for this test to kind of show you the difference. And I'm sure through the process, you're going to understand why I'm extremely happy to go with this option. As always, guys, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. If you have any questions, please comment them down below and we'll do our best to answer them as fast as possible. Any other questions or anything pressing, visit our website, pixelgolfco.com, where we have our contact information and you can reach out to us. If you need to ring us on the phone, we have free consultation. We'll kind of walk you through your build. So without further ado, let's dive into this video and let's show you exactly how I set up, installed, and use the BenQ LK936ST. And again, I want to send a huge thanks to BenQ for sending me this unit. Very happy that they did that. Honestly, I was going to buy it anyway, but this works out too. Let's get started.
Okay, the first thing you're going to want to do is go to the Golf SimPlanner tool by BenQ. I'll have a link to that down below in the descriptions, as well as links to all products used throughout my build. It's going to take you to the Golf SimPlanner tool where you're going to have a 3D rendering of your room setup. But the first thing we have to do is enter the information on the right hand side, and the first thing we want to do is pick the projector we are considering installing, and we're going to go down to the projector position, and in my case I'm using the LK936ST, so I'm going to click that here from the drop down. You'll see it's going to pop up a quick description. Go ahead and just exit that out, and then we can go back to the right side of the screen to enter our dimension. So I'm going to scroll up to the top, and the first thing you want to enter is the golfer height. You don't want to necessarily enter your height here. You want to enter the height of the tallest guy that you have. I have a guy who's 6'3" that's in here quite a bit, so I'm going to enter that height and the value here. And you're going to notice on the animated character in the rendering that it is going to change his height as well. This is going to help with shadow casting to see if the projector is going to work in your setup. Then you want to select the launch monitor that you're using for your build. If you have a top like the Unicore or GC Hawk, you can kind of see that. Let me zoom out. You can kind of see that up here. So that's really cool that they're, offering that. That way you can see if it's going to kind of get in the way and where it's all going to mount up. And then again, if you have something like a Mevo Plus, you can see the little Mevo Plus drop down. So that's a really cool feature. Really glad to see that. But for my case, I have a side mount, so I'm going to select that. And the next drop down is going to be for selecting your unit of measurement when you're using the tool. I'm going to go with inches in my case, but you also have feet and centimeters. Now we want to enter our room size. If you're using the entire room for a golf simulator, go ahead and enter those dimensions here. I'm only using a portion of the room that my simulator's in, so I'm going to enter those dimensions. On top of that, I have vaulted ceilings, which makes it a little bit tough, but I'm just going to enter mine as 9 feet high, so 108 inches. Even though where my enclosure is, it's about 8 feet, and my ceilings slope upwards to about 12 feet. But if you just have flat ceilings, obviously just enter that height dimension here. Then for the width in my case, again, I'm not using the whole room, so I'm using about 11 feet of width in that room for my simulator. So I'm going to enter those dimensions here, and that would be 132 inches. And then we can kind of see how it shrinks everything. And if you look at this rendering in the 3D graphics, it looks like the golfer's swinging the club into the wall. You can kind of zoom in there, but there is no actual wall there. Again, I'm just doing this because that's the area I'm using for my sim, so it's not a problem. So keep that in mind. Now we can go forward and enter the depth. In my case, again, I'm not using the whole room, so I'm just going to enter how long my turf is, or the area I've kind of set up for that turf to be installed. And that is about 15 feet. So I'm going to put 180 inches there. Now that all your room dimensions are entered, it's going to give you a really good rendering of that area you've allocated for your sim space. Now we can head down to the image size, and this is where you're going to enter your screen size. So not the size of your enclosure, but the actual screen size that the projector is going to be projecting an image on. I'm using a 4:3 aspect ratio, so I'm going to enter that here. But if you have 16:9 or 16:10, 1:1, you have all those options as well. But I'm going to put 4:3, and the height of my actual screen is 84 inches. Don't worry about the width or the diagonal measurements. Those are going to be calculated by the tool. You'll see them grayed out here below. And now that I have the height measurement for my screen and the aspect ratio, I'm just going to go ahead and lock those measurements by clicking the box here. We can then scroll to the projector position, and this is going to be showing you how far back that projector needs to be mounted. You can see 121.1 inches in my case for that screen size that I entered above. And this slider here, this is going to be where you can mount your projector. Again, they give you the flexibility to be able to mount it, within about a 12-inch zone. So at the closest, I can mount it 121.1 inches, and at the furthest back for my setup and my screen size, I can go all the way to 133 inches. So this adds flexibility just in case you have something in the way or there's not a good mounting location there. You can use the adjustable zoom knob on the actual unit. And I spoke to BenQ, and this does not affect the image quality by using this. I'm just going to slide it down to the minimum distance. Also really important, you're going to want to enter your distance from tee to screen. This is going to be the area where you're going to be hitting from. In my case, I hit from 108 inches back. So I'm going to select this and enter 108 inches. Again, if you look at the 3D graphic on the right-hand side, you'll notice that the golfer is going to move as well. This is to help calculate that throw. And if you're wondering what this slider is, this is just a way that you can slide the number here. But again, I'm hitting from 108 inches back. But if you were planning your build out and you wanted to see, is this going to work? Does my golfer need to be a little bit further back? This is where you can adjust that. But I'm going to go back and put the 108. Now we have my room dimensions, and we have the mounting location of the projector for my screen size. And you can notice here in the rendering that the screen is sitting up off the ground. I know some enclosures have the screen sitting up off the ground. I have the Carl C-Series enclosure where the screen sits nice and flush against the turf. So I'm going to want to make some further adjustments on the tool to see if I'm going to be able to do that. So I'm going to go to the advanced settings here on the right and drop that down. Now this slider is telling you basically how close to the ceiling you can mount that projector or how far down. I have vaulted ceilings and I got an adjustable projector mount, so I kind of have a little more free range here to do that. But if you wanted to go all the way up against your ceiling, you're going to need to make sure you're going to be able to do that. And still be able to move the image down to where you need it. And also the same works for the horizontal. So if you need to mount your unit off to the side, it's showing you kind of what the tolerances are here. You want to get the lens, the center of the lens, as close to center as possible. If you have studs to work around, you do have some options that you'll see on the next step. My stud was actually a little bit over to the right, so my My projector was mounted just maybe 2 inches to the right of center of screen, but I'll show you how to adjust that in the next step. So this is where the LK936 gets really cool. So now you have those knobs that I spoke about previously. Those are the knobs that allow you to adjust the lens shift without affecting image quality. So you can see, since I'm not center of my screen and I had to go 2 inches, I can move the horizontal knob and get my image back to center. And then you also have the ability to do the vertical lens shift. Remember, I spoke about I need to get my screen sitting all the way flat on the ground, and you can see in here I'm maxed out on the vertical lens shift and it's still not sitting flat. But remember, you have the option to bring the ceiling down. I have it at its absolute highest up setting, and I'm going to use a drop down for my case, so I can slide that down until I get that screen sitting nice and flat. And if I wanted to go a little bit lower, then I have more vertical offset that I can apply here. And the more vertical you use, the less horizontal you'll be able to use. So if you can adjust it by bringing the projector down lower, if you need to free up a little more vertical lens shift, you have that option here. And then kind of make the adjustments to make sure everything fits how it should. And you can see it's sitting 0.0 inches. So this will work with my setup. But the other thing we have to check is if we're going to cast that shadow or not. So you can just go to the rendering on the left hand side and you can spin it all the way around and get a really good overlook about how that image is going to be displayed on your setup. And if you're going to cast a shadow based on, what the tallest measurement for the golfer using your sim is going to be. And you can see I have plenty of room here without him hitting the shadow. You can look at the top view all the way around the back. I mean, this tool is an absolute game changer and I'm really glad to see it. So basically just take all the measurements that are important to you and we'll move on to the next step, but you can kind of see them off on the right hand side, the most important measurement being 121 inches. We already know from using the advanced settings that we're going to be able to make that work as long as we have it mounted in that tolerance zone of 121 to 133 inches. But you also have all the measurements showing here. If you look up above, you have your 121.1 inches back and your screen size and everything else and all the info you would possibly need. So let's jump to the next step and actually install this thing.
Now that you have your dimensions from that SimPlanner tool, you're going to want to take a tape measure, run it up to the front of your screen and kind of lay it across the ground, and you want to mark off those measurements that the SimPlanner tool predicted. In my case, I had 121 inches to about 133 inches where I can place that projector from the screen. And I use some white tape to kind of mark that area. That way I can get the tape measure out of the way and not, be standing on it. You're going to want to place your projector in this orientation with the lens center of the actual screen and go ahead and plug it in and power it on. So now I have my area marked off where I can mount my projector roughly. I got the lens center of the screen. And what you're going to want to do is once you have it powered up, you're going to notice, since I reset mine back to factory defaults, it's blurry. So the first thing I want to do in this case is adjust the focus knob on the front of the unit just to get everything in focus so we can see what we're doing for the next steps. And I'll go ahead and just pick English here and then press menu. Now, if you install your projector and this screen is like, all shifted around and upside down, just go down to the installation portion. You might have to kind of look at it upside down to get to this, but just switch it to the front setting. Now, I'm actually going to kill the lights a little bit for this step so I can show you the rest of the process. Okay, so I have my projector on the floor, and this is basically just going to be simulating it on the ceiling. So the way we get everything to fit while it's in this orientation is going to be the same as if we were to flip it, completely upside down and put it on the ceiling. So this is where you want to kind of get the distance from the screen set and make sure everything fits how it should. So go ahead and hit the menu button, and then we are going to go to installation, and we're going to put on the test pattern. So that is going to put a test pattern up on the screen, and this is where we're going to make our adjustments with the lens shift and the zoom if we need to. I'm going to get down here on the projector. I'm going to back the zoom off all the way. You can see that's fully zoomed in, that's zoomed out. And again, I'm at the minimum distance from the screen, that 121 inches. And you can see that that grid line is too high up. So I'm going to open the top panel cover and adjust the vertical lens shift to get that image sitting right at the screen where it needs to. And you're gonna notice right away, it doesn't fill the screen from top to bottom. And that's the most important thing. We want to ensure we're filling the screen from the top to the bottom for wherever that mounting location is. The reason BenQ gives you that range of adjustments is because they have the option to do the zoom feature. So you can see, even though we don't fit it top to bottom here, if I add some zoom to it, and then I do a little bit more of the lens shift, I can get this thing at this 121 inches to fit my screen from top to bottom. Let me just add a little more zoom. So this is one of the cool options about it. If you needed to mount it at the minimum distance, you're able to do that by adjusting the zoom to get it to fit. And you can see this is definitely going to fit from the minimum mounting location by using some zoom. One thing that might be hard to pick up on the camera, let me walk up over here, is there is some kind of squares in this pattern going off. I have a 4:3 aspect ratio. I'm going to show you after that how to adjust that in the graphics card. But you want to ensure that the same number of squares is shifted left to right from there. You can either use the lens shift for that. I have my screen mounted, or my projector sitting right on the center of the target line. So if I move this here, just to make sure it's straight, I have 1, 2, 3, 4.5 squares hanging off the left, and 1, 2, 3, 4.5 squares hanging off the right. So now I got everything nice and square. I know that this is going to work from this location. And then again, if we go back to the furthest back setting, now you can see it's way too big. Again, we can back the zoom off, change the vertical lens shift here to adjust for that, and then we can ensure that the image is going to fit that way as well. I had to turn the lights on for just a little bit, but basically the whole point of this process is to make sure that based on the calculations that the SimPlanner tool came up with, we're just replicating those here on the floor at the ground level to ensure that those dimensions are right, and we can see through that little test that everything fits right, so we can move forward to the next step and mount this projector straight up above, and I'll show you a little trick about how to do that. Now that you have your projector in the position where it's going to be mounted directly up above, what you're going to want to do is notate where the lens is. I'm just going to use the pieces of tape to mark the front of the lens and also the center. And you're going to want to take your projector and flip it upside down. This is the orientation it's going to be installed in. So this is exactly the position where you want that lens. And you're going to want to notate the center of the projector. You'll see a little symbol here that shows the center of gravity. Mount your mount directly up above in this exact location. Now, if you have flat ceilings, it's relatively easy to just take the measurement. But if you have vaulted ceilings like me, where the ceiling slopes upward, I'm going to show you a trick by using some household supplies like string, a thumbtack, and a nut. So basically, you're just going to want to take string. In my case, I just use some ribbon since it's Christmas and there's plenty of it laying around. And you want to tie it to a nut and then just grab a tack. And you're going to want to, grab a ladder and get yourself up to the ceiling. And just having that nut at the end of the string, you can let gravity do its work. And you want to get that nut lined up right over that center of gravity mark on the BenQ projector. And once you have that spot marked out, you can go ahead and take your thumbtack and push it right through the string. And that basically gives you your mounting location for your projector mount directly above the projector. So that's a pretty helpful trick there. Go ahead and just take a pencil and mark out the location, and then you can simply remove the tack and pull it back down. All right, I don't want to go into too many details how to mount the actual projector mount because there's going to be instructions in the box and there's such a variety of mounts. But the important thing to notate here is you're going to want to get your projector, flip back over, and this center of gravity mark that's on the bottom of the projector, you want to have where that mounting location is as center to that as possible. If you have it shifted off one way or the other too much, what's going to happen is the weight of the projector is slowly going to drift that mount, and you're going to have to really wrench it on there tight to keep that from happening. So it's best to get it as center as possible. Okay, now that you have your projector mounted, and again, you want to make sure it's nice and level. There are some cases where you might have to angle it down slightly and use the keystone if you just can't get around that. But again, the best possible method is to get it as level as possible, so you use as little digital corrections as possible. So we're going to want to start by opening up the menu, and my projector is powered on and mounted. And the first thing you're going to notice is because of the adjustments we made on the step prior, the image is upside down. So you're just going to have to navigate to installation. Everything's going to be a little thrown out of whack. And then projector position, and you're going to want to switch that to front ceiling, which is just one click to the right in my case. And you're going to want to go down to test pattern and turn that on. Now the first thing you're going to notice is the vertical offset is going in the wrong direction. Again, that's because we made our adjustments from the floor. We were kind of doing everything basically upside down. But now we're going to change all that since we have it mounted in the right location, and we change the installation position of it. So I'm going to get to the lens shift, and I'm going to start by moving that lens shift down just to get this line perfectly on the floor. And you can see how that line goes straight across the floor. It's not angled. That means I have my projector pointed exactly how it should be. And that's actually a good fit. But if you moved something like your zoom was out of whack, again, you can use the zoom slider here and make those adjustments. And again, from what BenQ told me, these adjustments made from these knobs as well as the zoom do not affect the image quality. So you can see right away that I have, well, they're rectangular, they're not square shapes. That's how they're supposed to be displayed, but they're not, misshaped. So we know we don't have our projector, tilted forward or backwards too much to where we would have to use something like vertical keystone. But if you notice right away, you can see that I have 2 squares hanging off the left side of my screen, and then I have, about 6 or 7 hanging off the right. So I'm gonna have to mess with that horizontal lens shift, and I want an even number of squares. I'm gonna turn that, and that leaves me with about 4.5. Oh, gotta go a little bit more. You see how I'm kind of maxed out here? That's because I have a little bit too much vertical. So if I back off that a little bit and then move the horizontal, it just gives you a little bit of room. So I got about 5 on one side. I'm gonna bring the zoom in. And a lot of this is just kind of playing back and forth to make everything fit how it should. And that's basically it. So you wanna take all the steps from doing the groundwork and just work that zoom and work that vertical and horizontal lens shift to get the image to fit, hanging off just slightly onto the borders. It's not that big a deal where you see the lines go up onto the black, because that really doesn't show up when the simulator's on with those black borders. And the important part to notate here is that we have, since I have a 4:3 ratio, again, I'm gonna show you how to adjust the graphics card after that and make that correction. But we have about 4 3/4 squares hanging off each side, and we got it filled top to bottom. So from here is a pretty good starting point. And you'll see if we go to the 3D keystone, you'll see zeros all across on all the values. That's ensuring that I have this image set level and I don't need any keystone correction since none of the shapes are distorted. So basically from here, you can shut off your test pattern, get your HDMI cable hooked up to your source or your laptop, computer, and then I'll show you how to make further adjustments from there. One thing I will note is it's very important when you're running 4K to make sure that you get an actual, 4K capable HDMI cable. I'll put a link in the description down below to the one I use. I did a bunch of research on it to ensure that this was going to work with no problem. There are a lot of HDMI cables to choose from, but just take a look down below if you're looking for one for your setup. Okay, now that you have your computer hooked up to your projector, you can see that the height is fitting perfectly on my setup, but you can see the width is hanging off over the edges. Again, when we set our projector distance from the screen, it is to match the height, and the width can be adjusted using the computer's graphics card, which I'll show you now. If I go to menu on the projector, you're going to want to just leave your aspect ratio on auto. And now from your computer, you're going to right click and open display settings. And you can see the 2 monitors here. Monitor 1 is my computer and monitor 2 is my projector. Now you have the option to duplicate the screens or extend the displays, or you can show, obviously just the projector. In my case, my laptop, which is an Alienware M17R4, it's a really good computer as far as the GPU and all the specs, but the monitor is 1080p. I cannot duplicate these displays. If you have a computer where your monitor is not 4K, you're not going to want to duplicate the displays, as it's going to throttle it down to what that computer monitor is capable of. So in this case, I'm going to select extend displays, and I'm going to click over to the monitor that is the projector. And then if I scroll down, you can see it's recommending 3840 by 2160 because that's the 4K signal it's receiving from the BenQ projector. However, these settings aren't going to work. The 2160 is going to work because we are filling the height. But for the width, since I have a 4:3 aspect ratio, I'm going to need to create a custom resolution that fits my screen. So in order to do that, you're going to want to open the NVIDIA control panel. Now this is only going to work if you have an NVIDIA GPU. If you're just starting out with your build, I would highly recommend going with a Intel processor like an i5 or higher and a NVIDIA graphics card. I would say 3000 series or up if you're looking at 4K. And at least about 16 gigabytes of RAM should work. Mine's 32 gigabytes, and every software that I use on here like GS Pro seems to be able to handle it without a problem. So I'm going to open up that NVIDIA control panel now, and then you'll see my laptop display here and the BenQ projector. So we're going to click on the BenQ projector, and we're gonna go here to customize. We're gonna make a custom resolution and then create custom resolution. So again, the 2160 is our vertical lines for our 4K and the 3840 is our horizontal pixels. So this is the value we're gonna have to change. The 2160 can stay the same. And in order to figure out what this value needs to be, we're gonna just open up our calculator and use some pretty basic math. You're gonna wanna take your screen width divided by your screen height. So I have a 115-inch wide screen, and I'm gonna divide that by the 84 inches high. And then I'm going to multiply that value by the vertical lines, which is 2160. And now this is going to give me a pretty close value to what my width needs to be set for on my display. So I'm going to enter that number here, 2957. And then we can hit test. And as you can see, it looks like it's hanging off just a little bit on the edges. But if you wanted to, you can just say revert, and I can change that number, let's say, to 2955. We'll test again. And that one fits a lot better. I'm gonna go ahead and hit no just to show you an example as if you have the wrong width selected. And let's go down to 2900 and we'll hit test one more time. So now you can see the image is actually not filling the whole width of the screen. So again, this is a way that you can set a custom resolution so you can ensure that you get it to fit perfectly. I'm going to hit no here and go back to that 2955 was a nice fit. And we'll test one more time. And yeah, that is perfect. I got my image filling my screen perfectly. I haven't used any kind of digital corrections from the projector, and this is the way you want to do it. We're not messing with keystone. We don't have to do corner fit. If your computer doesn't have nice straight edges, you know, around the perimeters, you might want to use a little bit of corner correction within the settings of the BenQ, which you can just go to menu, installation, and then go down to corner fit. And this is a cool feature if you have, you know, a situation like that where you can select each corner and adjust them, you know, how you need. But I would highly recommend going this route. Now that you have your resolution set, we're gonna go right click again on our computer, go to display settings, click on your BenQ projector monitor, scroll down, and from the drop down, you'll see our custom resolution, 2955 by 2160. And now we are all set up, so everything looks really good here. Very happy with how it turned out. And once that is set, you are pretty much good to go. You have your screen set up to fit your enclosure perfectly without having to use a bunch of digital correction. Now I'm going to launch GS Pro on my computer. That is a golf simulator software. I highly recommend getting something like this. This is one of the best softwares I've seen. And for $250 a year, you get to play pretty much the most iconic courses around the world. Can't stress how awesome GS Pro is enough, but let's go ahead and open that up so we can test out our display. Now when it launches, you're gonna notice it's trying to default to, you know, 1920 by 1080. We're gonna wanna drop that down and go to the custom resolution we made, which is 2955 by 2160 from the drop-down menu. And for the graphics quality, as long as you have a good enough computer to handle these graphics, you're gonna want to run it in Ultra. This is gonna get you the absolute best picture quality. We're gonna select our monitor as display 2, in my case, which is my BenQ projector, and hit play. And you're gonna see it's gonna launch the software onto my actual enclosure. Now the first thing I want to do now that it's launched is I'm going to hit menu on my projector, and this is where we're gonna turn on that awesome golf mode. So we're gonna go up to picture, and you can see it defaulted to presentation, and just scroll down to golf mode. And then you're gonna start to really see those colors pop. It works really well with simulation software. One thing that I like to make an adjustment to right out the gate is turning the sharpness all the way up. In a lot of home theaters, you know, turning sharpness up too high isn't recommended because it can kind of artifact the edges, but I've tested it with the sharpness at the highest setting. I think it looks visually the best through my testing, so I would recommend, you know, taking a look. And then we can just launch a course and just go to practice, on course practice. Let's pick the Win Golf Club. That one I know looks really good. I have a lot of lights turned on right now too for this. Let me kind of lower them a little bit. I probably didn't need the lights this high since I'm not even in the frame. So the lighting I have set right now is pretty close to the lighting I play in. I don't use a spotlight or anything like that. There's plenty enough light. And now we can just take a look at these amazing graphics. I'm just gonna do a quick flyover on hole 1 here at the wind course. And I really hope the camera's picking up how awesome this looks. I mean, it is extremely rich colors. Everything looks exceptional. If you have the chance to see this projector in person, check it out because it's pretty amazing. I'm gonna jump over to hole 18. And if you just look at the water, it looks crazy how realistic it looks. The trees, there's so much depth and the contrast looks really good. I was going to do a comparison putting the BenQ against the Optima in this video, but honestly, after doing all the filming and kind of seeing how long the video is getting, I don't want it to get too long, so I'm going to make a separate video where I compare the two against each other so you can better see the comparison for yourselves. Please make sure that you're subscribed so you see when that video launches. So that is pretty much it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope this video helped answer some questions you may have. If you have any other questions, feel free to comment them down below. All links to everything in my setup will be in the descriptions down below, so make sure to check that out. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel and you'll get notified when that video comes out that I'm gonna make doing a side-by-side detail comparison of the Optima GT1090 HDR versus the BenQ LK936ST. I also wanna give one last thank you to BenQ for sending me this unit. I'm very impressed by it and I can't thank you guys enough. We'll see you guys on the next one.